I'm Emily Harper, 28, and my family has always treated me like a shadow. My brother, the golden child, a successful lawyer, could do no wrong. And me, I poured my heart into holding the family together, sacrificing my own dreams, always trying to make them proud. But for them, it was never enough. They smiled at my brother, patted his back with pride, while I only received cold stares and sharper words. "Why can't you be more like him?" they said, their voices cutting straight through me like blades. I swallowed it all, stayed silent, believing that one day they'd finally see me. Then my brother's wedding drew near. I was handed the responsibility to make everything perfect, running every detail, ensuring nothing went wrong. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time they would notice me. But I was wrong. The night before the big day, we sat around the dinner table. My brother demanded more lavish bands, imported flowers, things I simply could not provide. I said no, and that's when my parents snapped. Their words struck like a blow I never saw coming. "The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is you vanishing from this family forever." The room went silent. My chest tightened, but I didn't beg. I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out. The door closed behind me like a final full stop. The wedding day came. Everything seemed perfect until it all collapsed in the blink of an eye. If it were you at age 28, would you stay to witness it or walk away forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your answer. Right now, in the midst of looking back, it feels like the weight of those years presses down, a constant reminder of how things built up to that breaking point. We're talking about the present, but it ties right into the lead up to Ryan's wedding last year, when I was still living in Buffalo, New York, trying to keep everything afloat in that familiar family home. The city itself, with its chilly winds off the lake and the steady hum of everyday life in our middle-class neighborhood, seemed to mirror the cold undercurrents at home. Our dining room, where so many of these moments unfolded, had that worn wooden table scarred from years of meals, the kind of place where conversations could turn sharp without warning. In this chapter of my life, the key people shaping it all were right there with me. I was the one always in the background, the freelance marketer scraping by, but holding on to hope. Ryan Harper, my brother, stood out as the favored one, confident always in his press suits, demanding more without a second thought. Our mother, Karen Foster, was the vocal force, her eyes lighting up for him while turning critical on me. Father Michael Foster kept his distance, stoic and indifferent, rarely meeting my gaze. And then there was Megan Walsh, Ryan's fiancée, who mostly stayed quiet, picking at her food during those tense gatherings, caught in the middle but saying little. The house in Buffalo felt like a stage for our uneven family play. The dining table, centered under a simple chandelier that cast long shadows in the evening light, was where we gathered that fateful night. The air carried the scent of Karen's usual roast, but tension thickened it, making every bite feel forced. Outside, the neighborhood streets were quiet, typical for a place like this rows of modest homes where people kept to themselves, much like how I had learned to keep my hurts tucked away. It started with the patterns that had defined us for so long. From early on, Ryan could breeze through life, his achievements celebrated with warm smiles and proud pats. Me, I worked tirelessly behind the scenes, piecing things together, giving up my own paths to support the family. I remember the cold stares when I'd share my small wins, the words that sliced deep. "Why can't you be more like him?" Each time I'd push it down, convince myself that persistence would earn their notice. Silence became my shield, a quiet belief that one day my efforts would shine through. Then came Ryan's wedding, a turning point I thought might change things. They thrust the planning onto me without asking if I had the time or resources, just an expectation to deliver flawlessly. I dove in, coordinating every piece from vendors to schedules, dipping into my own pockets to make it happen. For weeks, I juggled calls and meetings, ensuring the venue was set, the menu balanced, roast chicken, garlic, mashed potatoes, summer salads, all within what I could manage. I did it not just for Ryan, but to prove my value, to finally step out of that shadow. But doubts crept in as demands grew. Ryan wanted extravagances I couldn't swing, like a string quartet from out of town or rare orchids shipped in. I'd explain the limits, but he'd roll his eyes, calling me cheap. Karen would chime in, sipping her coffee, insisting it was his special day and I shouldn't spoil it. Michael nodded along, buried in his newspaper, muttering about not ruining things for my brother. Their dismissals built like a storm, each one stinging more than the last. That night before the wedding amplified it all. We sat there, the room heavy with unspoken frustrations. Ryan leaned back, scrolling his phone, pushing for lobster tails, vintage champagne from far away, and a high-end photographer who'd covered big events. Megan picked at her plate, avoiding eyes. I held firm voice steady. I can't. The budget's stretched and I've already covered so much. Ryan scoffed, tossing his phone down. You're always so cheap, Emily. This is my wedding, make it happen. Karen set her glass down sharply, eyes narrowing. He's right. Why are you being selfish? Michael glanced up, gruff as ever. Don't ruin this for your brother. My chest tightened further, their accusations landing like unseen punches. I'd given everything, time, energy, even my savings, and still I was the issue. I tried explaining again, but Ryan smirked, turning to Megan. See, I told you she'd skimp. Karen folded her arms, voice cutting. You've always been like this, never stepping up. Michael nodded. He deserves better than your half measures. Half measures, I'd handled it all, from haggling with caterers to confirming every detail. But to them, it didn't count. Ryan shook his head. Maybe you shouldn't be involved at all. Then Karen leaned in her gaze, icy. You know what, Emily? The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is you vanishing from this family forever. Silence fell heavy. Michael stared at his plate unflinching. Megan shifted uncomfortably. My heart raced, echoes of their rejection pounding. I could have listed every sacrifice, screamed about the unfairness. But their faces, Karen's glare, Michael's avoidance, Ryan's smug grin showed it wouldn't matter. They'd chosen him again. I stood chair, scraping the floor. Fine, if that's what you want. Purse and hand keys jangling, I headed out. Karen called, don't make a scene. But I was beyond listening. The door slammed sharp and final. Outside, Buffalo's cool air hit my face, but inside, a fire ignited. I'd given them my all, and they'd tossed it aside. In my car, gripping the steering wheel, thoughts raced. They wanted me gone, so be it. But I wouldn't fade quietly. Tomorrow, they'd face the consequences of pushing me away. The wedding I'd built would unravel a mirror to how they'd unraveled me. A couple of years ago in Buffalo, New York, as a young freelance marketer fresh out of college, I landed a major opportunity that changed everything, or so I thought. Back then, in 2023, I was just starting out navigating the early stages of my career right after wrapping up my degree. Buffalo's industrial vibe, with its mix of old factories and bustling streets near the lake, felt like the perfect backdrop for building something of my own. My small apartment in the city had a desk crammed in the corner where I'd spend hours pitching ideas and chasing gigs. It was a time of promise, but also the beginning of choices that would pull me in directions I hadn't planned. The people central to this phase were few but pivotal. I was the eager newcomer, full of big dreams in marketing, ready to prove myself. My mother, Karen Foster, came across as desperate when things got tough, her usual sharpness giving way to please. Father Michael Foster showed a rare vulnerability, his stoic shell cracking under pressure. And Alex Rivera, my best friend from college days, was the voice of reason, always there to listen over coffee, though I didn't always heed his words. The family grocery store in Buffalo stood as the heart of it all, a modest building on a corner lot, shelves once stocked but now gathering dust amid piling bills. The place smelled of stale produce and worry, with suppliers' calls going unanswered and the fluorescent lights flickering like a bad omen. Nearby, the local diner where Alex and I met had vinyl booths and strong coffee, a spot for unloading without judgment. It began with a breakthrough in my work. I'd secured a contract worth $50,000 with a big supermarket chain to overhaul their regional advertising. It was my shot at independence, a chance to make a name in a competitive field. The details excited me, crafting fresh campaigns, targeting local audiences, building something lasting. I could picture the freedom it would bring away from the family's constant pull. But then the call came. The store was sinking fast debts, mounting like snowdrifts in a Buffalo winter. Karen's voice over the phone broke a rare crack in her composure as she begged for help. We're losing it all, she said, the words heavy with fear. Michael, who rarely showed emotion, admitted the same, his tone flat but edged with defeat. They might have to close the doors for good, the legacy they'd built crumbling. I couldn't stand by. Family came first, or so I'd always believed, so I made the call to the supermarket rep, canceling the deal with a knot in my stomach. It hurt watching that opportunity slip away, but I redirected every bit of energy into the store. I started from scratch, piecing together a marketing plan tailored to our small operation. Days blurred into nights as I brainstormed. I arranged ads on local radio stations, simple spots highlighting fresh deals and community ties. Flyers went into every mailbox in the neighborhood, bright designs I mocked up on my laptop promising value and familiarity. Even on those early clunky social media platforms, I posted updates, photos of stock shelves, customer stories to draw people in. I haggled with vendors over the phone, charming them into better terms, and slashed unnecessary costs wherever I could. Foot traffic picked up almost immediately. What started as a trickle became a steady flow, customers filling the aisles again, chatting with staff like old times. Revenue climbed slow at first, then noticeably allowing us to chip away at the worst debts. I remember standing in the store one evening watching the cash register hum, feeling a quiet pride. This was my doing, I'd pulled them through. Yet doubt lingered. I believed this would be the moment they saw me acknowledge the sacrifice. Alex noticed the toll during our diner meetups. We'd sit in a booth, steam rising from our mugs, and I'd recount the latest efforts. He'd shake his head fork, pausing mid-bite. "They're blind to it, Emily," he'd say, his tone firm but kind. "You're pouring yourself out for folks who don't see the value." I'd brush it off with a shrug, stirring my coffee, insisting that if I pushed harder, they'd come around. Still, I kept at it. Late hours, tweaking slogans, adjusting posters on the store walls, anything to refine the campaign. The place transformed, brighter, busier, alive again. Suppliers returned, deliveries stacking up in the back room. I told myself that at the next family gathering, maybe Karen would say it, "You saved us." Perhaps Michael would finally look me in the eye, clap my shoulder instead of Ryan's. But as the months passed, that hope felt thinner. The store's turnaround was clear, yet my role in it seemed invisible to them. I'd walk the aisles restocking items myself when needed, hearing the chatter of satisfied shoppers. It should have been enough, but the ache for recognition grew. Alex's words echoed during our talks. "You're killing yourself for this." He was right in a way, but I couldn't quit. Not yet. The emotional weight built slowly. Excitement from the contract's promise faded into a dutiful grind guilt mixing with resolve. Each success at the store validated my skills, but the lack of thanks from home left a hollow spot. I processed it in quiet moments, alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. Why did their approval matter so much, yet it drove me a silent fuel? Conflict simmered beneath the surface. The family's reliance clashed with my own ambitions, pulling me between loyalty and self-preservation. Karen's pleas had drawn me in, but now with the store stabilizing, I wondered if they'd ever credit me. Michael's quiet admission had shown vulnerability, but it didn't translate to gratitude. In the end, as revenue steadied and debts cleared, I held on. The campaign had worked doubled, visitors humming registers, but the real test loomed. A family meeting was called one evening, and I walked in expecting some nod to my efforts. Instead, it set the stage for what came next, a handover that would deepen the divide. Several months after saving the store in Buffalo, New York, I expected some gratitude, but reality hit differently. In those months, spanning late 2023 into early 2024, I was still in my mid-20s, grinding through freelance work while clinging to the hope that my family would finally recognize my contributions. Buffalo's neighborhoods, with their sturdy brick buildings and community feel, provided a steady, if unremarkable, backdrop. The grocery store itself had transformed, once teetering on the edge, now buzzing with activity, but my small office space nearby, rented for my side gigs, felt like a quiet refuge amid the ongoing push for approval. The figures shaping this period remained close. I was the persistent one, reorganizing and updating, still seeking that elusive nod. Ryan Harper entered the scene more prominently now, the brother handed control despite his absence during the crisis, his condescension dripping like an unwelcome drizzle. Karen Foster glowed with pride for him, her words elevating his supposed vision. Michael Foster nodded along his avoidance, a silent endorsement. Alex Rivera continued as my sounding board, his concern growing during our casual meetups. The store in Buffalo stood central its aisles, now crowded the manager's office door, bearing Ryan's name like a slap. Family meetings happened in our home's living room with its comfortable but worn couches and coffee table cluttered with mugs. The local diner persisted as my spot, with Alex booths offering privacy for venting. It unfolded at one of those family evenings. I walked in anticipating at least a mention of how my campaign had turned things around, doubled foot traffic, climbing sales suppliers back in the fold. Instead, Karen and Michael announced the handover. "He's a lawyer," Karen said, her eyes shining as she looked at Ryan. "He's got the head for this." Michael nodded, staring at the floor, muttering, "It was for the best." I froze, the words landing heavy. Ryan hadn't touched the place during the tough times buried in his firm work, yet here he was, adjusting his tie with a smirk, already tossing out ideas I'd implemented weeks ago. "You did okay, Emily," he said, tone laced with superiority. Okay, I'd breathed life back into their legacy, given up my big break for it. Karen kept on about Ryan's fresh perspective, as if my ads and negotiations were footnotes. Michael sipped his coffee, not glancing up. The urge to shout rose to detail every late night, every slashed cost, but I held back, forced a smile, nodded along. Inside my chest constricted a familiar tightness. From there, I doubled down. Late shifts at the store, shelves restocked under the humming lights, ads refreshed on those early social feeds. Customers chatted happily, registers ringing, but Ryan's name on the door mocked me. Family discussions bypassed me, pulling him in for strategy while I handled the grunt work. Once Karen passed by as I mopped a spill. "Good job," she said absently, like I'd done a minor chore, not orchestrated the revival. Ryan would sweep in later, claiming credit for boosts I'd created, and they'd bob their heads as if he'd pioneered it all. I waited for a genuine thank you, thinking maybe next meeting, next success. The emotional toll deepened. Stunned at first, the hurt morphed into a persistent throb, but I channeled it into more effort. If I proved indispensable, surely they'd see. Alex saw through it during our diner sessions. We'd order coffee plates of simple fare and I'd unload. "They're blind, Emily," he'd say one night, leaning forward. "You're exhausting yourself for people who won't appreciate it." His words lingered, but I shrugged them off, stirring sugar into my cup. If I make this perfect, maybe they'll notice. Yet I couldn't halt. The store flourished, crowded lanes, steady hum, but my role stayed overshadowed. I pondered it alone in my office, tweaking designs, the screen's glow, the only company. Why chase their validation? It fueled me still, a quiet drive toward empowerment I didn't yet grasp. Conflict sharpened. Favoritism glared in the handover, my work dismissed as backup. Ryan's smirks grated Karen's praise for him, a constant jab, Michael's silence complicit. Alex's head shakes grew more insistent. "You deserve better." His concern planted seeds, but hope held me. As time wore on, I pushed forward, ignoring the growing ache. The lesson simmered beneath my worth wasn't in their eyes, but it hadn't surfaced yet. The store's success stood as proof of my skills, yet the family's blindness set the stage for what followed. Months later, when wedding plans arose, the patterns repeated, building toward the inevitable snap. Months later in Buffalo, New York, as I dipped into my savings for my brother's wedding, the demands kept coming. By mid-2024, I was approaching 28, still freelancing on the side while throwing myself into family obligations, hoping this event would shift their view of me. Buffalo's familiar streets, with their mix of historic charm and everyday grit, framed the chaos of planning. My modest apartment served as command central, papers and contracts scattered across the table, while family lunches and dinners at home amplified the growing strain. The core people in this whirlwind were ever present. I was the organizer, exhausted but determined. Ryan Harper ramped up his role, his demands, turning the wedding into a spectacle. Karen Foster sided firmly with him, her criticisms quick and pointed. Michael Foster muttered his support, his indifference, a quiet backdrop. Megan Walsh, the fiancée, remained on the periphery, silent amid the escalating tension. Alex Rivera offered an outlet, his firm advice cutting through during our coffee shop talks. The settings blended the personal and practical. Our family home in Buffalo, with its cozy kitchen and dining area, hosted those charged meals table, laden with simple fare, but the air thick with expectations. The local coffee shop, a short drive away, had quiet corners for venting, with Alex steam from mugs rising like my frustrations. Vendor meetings happened over the phone or in person around town, haggling in modest offices or at the venue itself, a straightforward hall I'd booked to fit the budget. It started when they handed me the wedding reins without a second thought. Ryan was marrying Megan, and the expectation fell on me to handle it all. No questions about my schedule or funds, just deliver perfection. I tapped into my savings, $12,000 in deposits for the venue caterers, florists, and more. I aimed for flawless, not for Ryan's sake, but to earn that long-sought respect. Weeks passed in a blur of calls. I selected a menu to balance cost and appeal: roast chicken, garlic, mashed potatoes, summer salads, florists for standard roses instead of exotics, a local band willing to cut rates. Every decision weighed demands against reality, contracts double-checked to avoid slips, but Ryan envisioned grandeur. Over breakfast one morning, he scrolled his phone, get a string quartet from out of town, and those rare orchids Megan spotted. I explained the tight budget, my savings already thin. He rolled his eyes. You're always cutting corners. Make it happen. Karen, sipping coffee, jumped in. He's right. This is his day. Don't mess it up. Michael flipped his newspaper, nodding without a word. The stings accumulated, but I pressed on late nights emailing adjustments, believing a seamless event would win them over. Ryan's pushes intensified. A call one afternoon, book that celebrity DJ, it's just a few thousand more. I reminded him of my funding, half the costs. Figure it out, he snapped, hanging up. Karen, overhearing later, shook her head. Why can't you just do what he wants? Michael glanced up. Don't ruin this for him. Dismissed again, my work invisible, despite hours coordinating. At a family lunch, Karen spotted a typo in my invitation draft, tossing it aside, careless. Ryan smirked, typical Emily. The impulse to retort surged, to highlight the load I carried, but I bit back, tweaking the seating chart, instead confirming deliveries. Alex noticed the strain during an evening at the coffee shop. I vented about the latest. Now he wants a custom ice sculpture. Alex leaned forward. You're bending over backward for ungrateful people. Stand up for yourself. I stirred my drink. If I pull this off, maybe they'll see. He shook his head, unconvinced. They won't. You're worth more. I couldn't stop. Daily venue checks, linens, perfect cake ordered, even an extra deposit for a backup generator just in case. Savings dwindled, but I convinced myself it was worthwhile. If I delivered, perhaps Karen would smile my way. Michael offer more than warnings. Demands escalated further. A text from Ryan linked a luxury caterer for caviar. Make it happen. I called stressing the budget blow. You're embarrassing me, he said coldly. Karen sighed when I mentioned it. Just do it. It's not that hard. Michael nodded from his chair. The night before, sealed it. At the dining table, air thick, no one eating much. Ryan broke the quiet upgrade, the menu lobster tails, that Napa champagne, and the photographer from the big gala. Megan picked at her plate. I stared, calculations racing. I can't, I said steadily. Deposits are paid, no room left. Ryan tossed his phone. Cheap as always. Make it work. Karen slammed her glass. Selfish, this is once in a lifetime. Michael, don't ruin it. Chest tight, I pushed back. I've funded, half done everything. Ryan smirked to Megan. Told you she'd skimp. Karen, always like this. Michael deserves better. The next morning in Buffalo, New York, after their harsh words, I stared at my phone, my $12,000 in savings tied up in wedding deposits, but I was ready to reclaim it all. In that immediate aftermath of 2024's chaotic night, I was 28, awakening to a clarity that cut through the prior fog of hope. Buffalo's morning light filtered through my apartment window, casting long shadows on the floor, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing. The city, with its resilient spirit amid economic ups and downs, mirrored my shift from endurance to action. My small space boxes, already half-packed in anticipation, became the hub for decisive calls. The individuals tied to this turning point lingered in the fallout. I was the one taking charge now, steady despite the shake. Ryan Harper surfaced in the venue frenzy, his frustration boiling over. Karen Foster's voice pierced through voicemails, shrill and accusatory. Michael Foster added his cold tone and messages labeling me without remorse. Alex Rivera provided a grounding presence, dropping by to check in amid the digital backlash. My apartment in Buffalo felt like a temporary fortress bed unmade from a restless night phone screen glowing with a savings app. The wedding venue, a modest hall across town, transformed into a scene of disarray. Empty tables, confused whispers echoing off the walls. A local online forum buzzed on my laptop posts, piling up like unwelcome intruders. Later, the bus station marked the exit suitcases at my feet. It began with those echoing words from dinner burning as I sat up in bed. The $12,000 stared back from the app, locked in caterer fees, florist arrangements, band payments, all my doing to craft their perfect day. But their demand to vanish flipped the script. No more letting them trample me. I picked up the phone, voice calm, as I dialed. First, the caterer. Cancel the order, I said firm. I'm pulling the deposit. The woman hesitated, mentioning penalties, but I pushed through uncaring. Next, the florist. No roses, no centerpieces, refund my payment. The band followed. They'd cashed the check, but I insisted on a chargeback, details handled through gritted teeth. By noon, I'd recovered most of the $12,000, stripping the event bare. No bouquets, no tunes, no meals. Chaos hit the venue by afternoon. Guests arrived to Baron Setup's relatives, murmuring in bewilderment. Megan stood in her gown, stunned amid the void. Ryan, face flushed red, barked at staff who had no explanations, his composure cracking. I wasn't there to see it, but the fallout reached me soon enough. Karen's voicemail came first, her pitch high and frantic. "Emily, what have you done? You've ruined everything." Michaels followed his words icy. "You're a disgrace to this family." Their barbs didn't land as before. I'd heard plenty. That evening, Ryan vented on the local forum, a Buffalo message board alive with chatter. "My sister sabotaged my wedding," he wrote venom clear. "Jaloux spiteful destroyed my best day." Comments flooded in, some from longtime neighbors calling me selfish or unstable. Karen replied, "She's always been trouble." Michael stayed silent online, but his agreement was implied. Their twists on the truth spread, painting me as the villain to shield themselves. Sitting in my apartment, scrolling the posts, my stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to counter-reveal how I'd bankrolled half their dream-faced endless demands, but why they'd never own up. Instead, I shifted focus, opening tabs for apartments in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'd visited once, drawn to the serene mountains, the promise of renewal. Buffalo held only echoes now, a family viewing me as expendable. I phoned a realtor, something small. "I'm starting fresh." Alex dropped by that night, face serious. "They're trashing you online," he said, holding up his phone to show Ryan's rant. "You holding up?" I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly. "I'm done with him." He didn't press, just sat as I boxed books and my laptop. "You're stronger than they realize," he said before heading out. His encouragement anchored me in the turmoil. By midnight, I'd secured a one-way bus ticket to Charlottesville for the following week. The wedding's implosion rested on their shoulders. They'd driven me to it. Karen's blaming voice replayed in my mind, Michael's chill, labels stinging, Ryan's lies hitting hardest. But I refused to linger in their narrative. I'd poured out money, effort, hope, only for them to discard it. Now I chose me. Weeks later, I wrapped up loose ends. In my Buffalo office, a rented room with desk and files, I packed the last items. My freelance setup modest, but mine drew an offer from a local agency, $30,000 for the client list and contracts. I signed without pause, pen steady. That sum plus the reclaimed $12,000 fueled my escape. Tougher was the store. For years, I'd invested not just the campaign, but $6,000 from savings to sustain it. I'd balanced books, negotiated supplies, managed inventory. Post-Betrayal, I contacted the bank, withdrawing every cent. No warning to Karen or Michael, they'd chosen when they banished me. Without my input, the patches I'd applied would fail. By month's end, I boarded the bus to Charlottesville, 2 suitcases holding clothes, laptop, books. Mountains rose outside the window, their calm drawing me onward. The emotional release came gradual, from churning gut to resolute calm. Their failure wasn't my weight anymore. Weeks after the fallout arriving in Charlottesville, Virginia, I unpacked in my small apartment, ready to rebuild, with the $30,000 from my business sale and reclaimed funds. In those initial weeks of 2024, I was 28, stepping into a new chapter far from Buffalo's familiar weight. Charlottesville's charm, with its rolling hills and vibrant downtown, offered a fresh canvas mountains visible from my window, a quiet promise amid the change. The city, known for its artistic, bent, and community warmth, felt like a soft landing after the storm. My one-bedroom rental, simple with bare floors and empty walls, became the starting point for piecing life back together. The key supports in this phase emerged gradually. I was the newcomer, cautious but open to the shift. Patricia Hayes, the bakery owner in her 50s, brought a welcoming energy, her apron dusted with flour as she shared bits of her world. Alex Rivera stayed connected from afar, his texts and calls a steady link to the past without pulling me back. The apartment in Charlottesville overlooked the Appalachian Peaks, a view that calmed as I settled in. Downtown's bakery drew me first, its wooden tables and pastry scents inviting. Local cafes buzzed with pitches, laptops open amid coffee aromas. A business meetup in a cozy venue connected me to shop owners, handshakes leading to opportunities. Hiking trails like Old Rag Mountain provided escapes paths winding through nature's quiet. It started that first night sitting on the floor with takeout boxes, the $30,000 padding my account like a safety net. No more shadows, just me building anew. I dove into freelance marketing gigs, small jobs for area businesses like coffee roasters and boutiques. My skills honed over years shone in crafting ads and strategies, work flowing steadily. One morning, the bakery's fresh bread aroma pulled me in. Patricia greeted with a broad smile, sliding a free scone across the counter. "You look new here," she said, her laugh filling the space. We chatted. I shared I'd just relocated, skipping the messy backstory. She didn't probe, instead recounting her own restart after a divorce, rebuilding the shop from nothing. "Takes guts," she noted, eyes kind. She invited me to a local business gathering, introducing me to owners needing marketing boosts. 2 clients came from that, a quick logo for one ad copy for another. Work picked up my days, filled with designs and pitches over cafe tables. Income hovered at $3,500 a month, covering the apartment, groceries, and small indulgences like a concert or hiking boots. Alex kept in touch, his messages blunt at first. "The store's struggling without you." He'd text suppliers, halting shelves, emptying, customers fading. Ryan fumbled decisions. Karen tried stepping in, but faltered on logistics. Michael blamed others. "They're unraveling," Alex wrote. I didn't respond. Their mess wasn't mine to fix. Patricia became a daily fixture. Mornings at her bakery, coffee in hand, we'd talk life, her steady presence grounding. Evenings sometimes lingered with mugs of tea, cinnamon roll scents hanging. "You seem to be settling," she'd say, noticing the change. Emotions evolved slowly. Wary of new ties at first, the city's warmth eased me in. Each gig felt like a foundation brick, proving my value beyond family eyes. Alone in the apartment, unpacking plants for the sill or a rug from the market, a lightness grew. Alex called one evening. "The place isn't the same without you," he laughed, then seriously. "But you're thriving there." His words reinforced the strength I'd rediscovered. No dwelling on Buffalo's venom. Ryan's angry posts, Karen's voicemails, they faded. Here clients trusted my pitches, connections formed without strings. The ache from unappreciated sacrifices softened, replaced by self-reliance. Conflict from the past hovered distantly, but focus turned inward. The family's downfall, self-made, underscored my boundaries. In Charlottesville, I wasn't the overlooked sibling. I was crafting my path. As months edged on, stability took root. A big contract loomed later, but these early steps, gig-secured friends like Patricia, built the base. One evening at the bakery, chatting with her over tea, I realized days passed without Buffalo thoughts. Unburdened, I breathed freer. Several months down the line in Charlottesville, Virginia, the ripples from Buffalo reached me, but I stood firm against their pleas. As 2024 gave way to 2025, I was still 28, my life in Charlottesville solidifying while echoes from the past tested that foundation. The city's serene mountains and bustling downtown cafes provided a buffer, but updates trickled in reminding me of the ties I'd severed. My apartment, now more like home with plants and bookshelves, served as a space for reflection amid the ongoing rebuild. The players in this phase spanned distances. I was the one holding boundaries, reading and responding with finality. Karen Foster reached out through her letter, her shaky script claiming illness to pull strings. Michael Foster retreated in the background, his blaming nature evident in the fallout. Ryan Harper lashed via email, his arrogance undimmed despite losses. Megan Walsh faded quietly, her engagement dissolving. Patricia Hayes offered blunt wisdom at her bakery counter. Alex Rivera echoed support over calls, his agreement reinforcing my stance. The apartment in Charlottesville felt cozy, now envelope in hand on a crisp morning. Patricia's bakery downtown, with its flower-scented air and wooden counters, hosted discussions over coffee. Buffalo's updates came via texts, shuttered store windows, a cramped apartment on the city's edge, neighbors' averted gazes in familiar streets. It built with the store's collapse. Once the family's core, now locked doors, symbolized their unraveling. Suppliers ceased deliveries when payments lagged, shelves emptying like forgotten promises. Customers drifted, turned off by the disarray. Ryan, given control, botched every move, his lawyer smarts no match for the daily grind. Karen attempted to intervene, but logistics I'd once handled overwhelmed her. Michael pulled back, pointing fingers elsewhere. Within weeks of my departure, bankruptcy hit the place, gone for good. Alex's text detailed it, falling apart without you. Parents sold their house, downsizing to a tight spot on Buffalo's outskirts, savings draining. Neighbors, once friendly now, dodged them, the tarnished rep spreading like fog off the lake. Ryan didn't fare better. His charm, once a free pass, couldn't hide mismanagement. He landed at a hardware store, but whispers followed, customers murmuring about his part in the family's slide. Arrogance lost its edge. Megan drifted their engagement quietly, ending under the pressure. The facade they'd maintained crumbled. I didn't linger on their struggles. Charlottesville demanded my attention. Freelance contracts grew 5 local spots: a brewery, bookstore, art gallery, cafe, hiking, gear shop. Days involved logos, copy campaigns pitched in downtown cafes, income steady at $3,500 monthly. Then Karen's letter arrived, envelope trembling in her script. She claimed a serious illness, pleading my return to Buffalo to aid their rebuild. Words dripped guilt, positioning me as their savior. I read it twice, stomach nodding. At the bakery, I handed it to Patricia as she wiped the counter. She scanned, brow furrowing. This reeks of manipulation. Tossing it aside, people don't transform overnight. Her directness pierced my doubt. I'd witnessed Karen's ploys before wielding pity like a tool. Calling Alex, I shared. He concurred. She's dragging you back, don't bite. Their input solidified it. I penned a brief reply, wish you well, but I'm not returning. Mailed it, then blocked their numbers. Severing wasn't simple. A part ached for the family they could have been, but staying linked would erode my peace. Patricia nodded when I told her, eyes proud, choosing yourself, that's the bravest step. Alex, on the next call, you're free now. No looking back. Their backing fueled the courage to release. In Charlottesville, growth extended beyond work. Hiking groups on trails like Old Rag Mountains, vast and wild. Painting resumed sketchbooks filled with watercolors of landscapes. The apartment warmed plants' thriving market rug underfoot shelves of read books. A regional tourism board contract landed 6 months, doubling income, challenging but affirming. Late nights refining slogans felt like evidence of my capability. One bakery evening with Patricia and regulars laughing over local festivals, a client stopped by. Your campaign boosted us, thanks. Warmth spread, unlike Buffalo's chill. The lesson deepened my worth, untied from their approval, rooted in trusted clients, uplifting friends, whole moments alone. As time passed in Charlottesville, Virginia, I embraced a life untethered from their shadows, building something truly mine. In the ongoing stretch of 2025, I remained 28 my days in Charlottesville, weaving a tapestry of independence that felt solid and earned. The city's endless mountain vistas and quirky downtown spots nurtured this growth, a far cry from Buffalo's lingering chill. My apartment, once bare, now brimmed with personal touches, plants thriving on sills, a colorful rug from a local market, bookshelves heavy with volumes I finally had time to savor. The anchors in this finale were close and affirming. I was the one standing tall, fully in my element. Patricia Hayes remained a constant, her bakery, chats, a source of uncomplicated belief. Alex Rivera echoed from afar, his calls reminding me of inner strength without dragging me back. The family, Karen, Michael, Ryan, Megan, hovered as distant echoes their struggles, no longer my concern. Settings grounded the peace. Trails like Old Rag Mountain wound through wild expanses, group hikes filling weekends with fresh air and camaraderie. The apartment in Charlottesville became a true haven, sunlight streaming in as I painted or read. Patricia's bakery, with its cozy tables and lingering pastry scents, hosted evenings of laughter with regulars. Cafes downtown buzzed with work laptops open amid the hum of conversations. It unfolded naturally, months blending into a rhythm of self-discovery. I joined a hiking group, trekking those vast paths where peaks stretched forever, the physical challenge mirroring my internal climb. Painting a passion sidelined in Buffalo returned sketchbooks filled with watercolor captures of landscapes, brushes dipping into hues that mirrored the Blue Ridge's blues and greens. Work flourished too. The tourism board contract, a 6-month commitment, doubled my income, pushing boundaries with campaigns that demanded creativity. Late evenings spent refining slogans and visuals felt rewarding, each tweak a testament to my capabilities. Income steady at $3,500 monthly, before now allowed for comforts, a concert ticket here, new boots there. One evening at the bakery, mugs steaming with tea, Patricia and a few regulars shared stories of the city's odd festivals. Laughter flowed easy, the cinnamon aroma wrapping around us like a warm blanket. A client dropped by unexpectedly. Your work brought in crowds, foot traffic up thanks to that campaign. I smiled, a genuine warmth, spreading so different from the distracted nods back home. I didn't fixate on Buffalo's downfall. Their borrowed successes had fractured store, shuttered house, sold engagements dissolved, but it wasn't my story anymore. Alex's occasional calls confirmed it. You're stronger than they know. He was spot on. In Charlottesville, I wasn't the overlooked one. I was the architect of my days. Emotions settled into a profound ease. From the initial wariness to this unburdened state, I stood taller, whole in quiet moments, watching sunsets from my window or losing myself in a book. The ache for their approval had faded, replaced by self-validation through clients who valued me, friends who lifted without expectation. Conflict's remnants dissolved. Their self-made chaos had run its course, my quiet withdrawal, ensuring I thrived apart. The message crystallized value lies in the life you forge, not in unreturned sacrifices. Charlottesville wasn't merely an escape. It taught me to claim my space not for others, but for me. Looking back, the journey from shadow to self feels like shedding an old skin, one that no longer fit. The mountains here in Charlottesville stand as silent witnesses to that growth, their steady presence, a reminder that peace comes from within. If there's a lesson, it's this. Sometimes walking away opens doors you never knew existed, allowing you to build on your own terms without the weight of unearned expectations. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family ties? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more tales of turning points like this.